Hello and welcome to Fractions Day 3, Part 3. Today is fractions of a quantity. You might not know what that means. Fractions of a quantity. What that is when you get a fraction like half. That's a fraction, isn't it? A fraction like a half, you get an of, and you get a quantity. And a quantity is just a number, like 10. So half of 10. Some of you will know that instantly. Half of 10. It is 5. But we're going to do more difficult versions than that. But that's what a fraction of a quantity is. It's when you get a fraction and you get an of and you get a quantity, which means a number. Okay? Notice the first part is a fraction, so it's just a little bit. But the next part, the last part, is a quantity. It's a number. It's a whole number, like 10 whole ones. So this is not a fraction. This is a larger amount, 10 whole ones. So let's move on through today's lesson, fractions of a quantity. But first we're going to quickly revise what we've done the last 2 days. So shaded fractions, what have we got here? Can you tell me what part is shaded? What fraction is shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 out of 5 is shaded. And can you tell me what part is unshaded? Hopefully you're saying 1 part out of 5. So 4/5 shaded, 4/5 are green, 4 parts out of the 5. And 1/5 is unshaded, it's empty or white, 1/5 unshaded out of the 5 parts. Let's move on to the next one. This one here, out of these circles, this is different to anything we've done before. It's not exactly the same. What fraction are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 out of something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5/8 are shaded, aren't they? 5/8 are shaded. Can you tell me how many are unshaded, or what fraction is unshaded? It's 1, 2, 3. And there's still 8 of them. So 3/8 are unshaded. Hopefully you remember that from our shaded fractions work. We'll move on to what we did yesterday. We did adding fractions, didn't we? 4/9 plus 3/9. You just add the tops. Add the numerators. 4 plus 3 is 7. 9 stays on the bottom. If 9's on the bottom, it stays on the bottom. So 4/9 plus 3/9 is 7/9. Just like 4 bananas plus 3 bananas is 7 bananas. On to the next one. This is a minus. This question here is a minus. 8/10 minus 3/10. The answer is going to still be in tenths because we're talking about tenths, not bananas or dogs or burgers or anything else. We're talking about tenths. 8 take away 3 is 5. So 8/10 take away 3/10 is 5/10. That's what we've been doing the last 2 days. And some of you have done more advanced stuff than that. But that's the basics of what we've been doing. And we'll move on to today's lesson. We need a little bit more knowledge about fractions. So if we have 1 whole 1, here it is. And we have the whole of it shaded. We have 1 whole 1, don't we? That's 1 whole circle. The normal number 1 doesn't need a fraction or anything because it's just 1 whole circle. The next part, the next circle, it's another whole circle, but it's chopped into 2 bits, isn't it? Wonder if you know what those 2 bits are called. They're called halves, aren't they? How many halves do you need to make a whole 1? 1, 2. If you colour in both of them, you've got 2 halves. And is the whole circle coloured in? Yes. So 2 halves equals 1 as well. Because this lot here, is the same size as this lot here, isn't it? Excuse my messy squiggling on there. But both those circles are the same size. So 2 halves, if you've got 2 halves, you've got 1 whole. What about if we split a circle into 3 bits? How many bits would we need to shade to get 1 whole 1? Hopefully you're saying 3. If it's in thirds, 3 bits, 1, 2, 3, you need to have all 3 shaded, 3 out of 3 shaded, and then you would have 1 whole 1. If we want to have 1 whole 1 on the next picture, which is in 4 bits, How many of those 4 bits will have to be shaded to have one whole one? 4. All of them. You need all of them shaded to have the whole thing shaded. If it's in fifths, how many bits do you need to be shaded to have one whole one? 5 fifths is one whole one, isn't it? 5 fifths. That's one whole. What about if it's in sixths? If you decided to chop your pizza or your cake or whatever else is a circular shape in the world, if you decided to chop it in 6 bits, how many bits would you need to have the whole thing? 6. You would need 6 out of 6. 6 sixths is one whole one. So there's a lot of things on this page that are worth one whole, because in every picture so far I've shaded the whole circle, haven't I? Not left any bits out. I'll do that again on this one, which has 7 bits. As you can see, if I shade 7 out of 7, then I've got the whole one. And the next one has 8 bits. If I shade 8 out of 8, then I've got the whole one. So what I'm trying to tell you is, whatever number of bits you chop your circle up into, you need to have all those bits if you want to have the whole one. So all of these pictures are worth one whole. Not everything, of course, in fractions is worth one whole. I'm going to drag a picture up now of something that's not. This one here, it's not all coloured in, is it? This is not 4. This is not 4 out of 4. I'm going to have to change it now. This is not a whole one. It's not all coloured in, so it can't be a whole one. What is coloured in? What is shaded in? It's 3 out of 4. And 3/4 is not 1. So I can't write equals 1 anymore. 3/4 is smaller than 1, isn't it? Because there's less shaded in than the whole one. So 3/4 is smaller than one whole one. Okay, something else, which is not one whole one. This time the sixths, I've missed one out. So I have to change this because it's not one whole. The whole thing's not coloured in anymore. I haven't coloured in 6 bits anymore. How many bits have I coloured in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only 5 sixths. And 5 sixths is not one whole one. So I can't say it equals 1. So some fractions are not a whole one, of course. Most fractions are not a whole one. But if you want to have one whole one, you have to have all the bits. Let's move on to fractions of a quantity. This is a fraction of a quantity because we have a fraction, we have an of, and we have a quantity, which just means a number. Quantity is just a fancy word for number. So this is a fractions of a quantity question. There's 3 ways of doing this, half of 10, okay? Let's do it in 3 different ways. First of all, I could get 1 out of every 2. So with these 10 bananas, there are 10 bananas, just check that. Make sure I have got 10. I've got 10 bananas. So we're going to use the 10 to talk about bananas to help us. I need 1 out of every 2 bananas. So every time I see 2 bananas, I get 1 of them. I'm just going to tick it. Every time I see 2 bananas, there's another 2, I get 1 of them. Every time I see 2 bananas, I get 1 of them. Not the other one. I'll cross those out. Not the other one. Not the other one. Every time I see 2 bananas, I get 1 of them. And every time I see 2 bananas, I get 1 of them. So I'm going to count how many bananas I ticked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Half of 10 is 5. You might know that anyway, that half of 10 is 5. We're starting with an easy example. So that's one way of doing it. You get 1, get the numerator 1 out of every 2. And then in the end you would find half of 10. Let's do it a different way. We can do it with division. Remember I told you this line means divide. You might not remember that, but this line does mean divide. And later on in maths, you're going to learn that of means times. So fractions have a lot to do with times and divide. A lot to do with times and divide. So we often use times and divide to help us in questions. One way of doing half of 10 is going 10 divided by 2. So dividing by the bottom 10, and I'm going to divide it by 2. You don't need to know how to draw all these circles and arrows and stuff, but know that you can do 10 divided by 2 and you'll get a half of something. 10 divided by 2. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 2. 1 over this side, 1 over this side. 1 over this side, 1 over this side. So it's just fairly sharing out these bananas. I do this in the morning maths in year 3, don't I? Just share things out, because divide is sharing, okay? As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each group has got 5 in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So half of 10 is 5. So that time we did it with sharing. And the final way we could do this, let's put the bananas back up the top. I'm actually going to do it without bananas. I'm going to do it with songs, because you know that I said this line means divide and of means times. Okay, so divide and times are involved in these questions. We can just sing our way to the answer. What you can do is you can sing in twos until you get to 10. It's 2, it's 4, it's 6, then it's 8, and then it's 10. And if you count on your fingers, you have 5 fingers. So I'm singing, counting on my fingers. I'm singing in the small number. I'm singing in this denominator here. I'm singing up to 10. It's 2, it's 4, it's 6, then it's 8, and then it's 10. And my fingers are telling me the answer that it's 5. And that's the way you can do these. If you know your times table songs, you can solve these fractions of a quantity just by singing. You don't have to share out bananas every time. I'm going to show you some more examples though, because often you don't get things on the first example. It's not your fault. Most people don't get things on the first example. I'm going to do more examples. So now, a different question. We've got dogs this time. A quarter of 16, or in this case, a quarter of 16 dogs. So we have a fraction, we have an of, and we have a quantity, which is just a number. We have a line, which means divide, and an of, which means times. So first of all, I'm going to do this just by selecting 1 out of every 4 dogs. So I'm going to find 4 dogs. Let's just put a circle around 4. I just want 4, and I'm going to get 1 out of those 4. Let's get this one. Doesn't matter which one you get. I'm going to find another 4. That's only 3, so I'll get this one as well. That's 4, isn't it? Got another 4. I get 1 out of those 4. Let's get these 4 at the top. And then you just choose 1 out of those 4. So every time you see 4, you want to get 1. The last time I see 4 is down here, and I get 1. And then you just count your ticks. 1, 2, 3, 4. The answer is 4. A quarter of 16 is 4. That's the first way that you can do it, by doing 1 out of every 4. Every time you see 4, you get 1. Let's do it another way. The next way, I'm going to do it with division, by sharing out the dogs into 4 groups. Why 4 groups? Because 4 is the denominator here, isn't it? That's why I'm going to do 4. So I'm going to do 16 divided by 4. It's another way of doing it. I know what the answer is. I'm just showing you different ways to do it. 16, and there's 16 dogs into 4 groups. 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. Fairly sharing them out. Just like I do in the morning maths year 3 each day. Like you learned in year 2, how you can share things out. Division is sharing things out. There we go. How many in each group? You're probably saying 4, and we know the answer is 4. And the last way I'm going to do it, I don't even need the little dogs. I'll leave them there. The last way, and you're probably thinking now the easiest way, is just to sing your way to the answer. You take this denominator 4 and you sing up to 16. Count on your fingers. 4, 8, 12, 16. I've got 4 fingers showing because the answer is 4. So you just sing in 4s until you get to 16. Then you stop and you look at your fingers. It's kind of the opposite to times. This is divide, which is the opposite to times. But the great thing about it is you can still use the songs. Let's move on. 1/3 of 15. I'm going to do it first by selecting 1 out of every 3. I'm going to do it fast this time. There's 3. I'm going to get 1 of them. There's 3. I'm going to get 1 of them. There's another 3. I'm going to get 1 of them. There's 3. I'm going to get 1 of them. There's 3. I'm going to get 1 of them. Doesn't matter which one you choose. So every time I saw 3, I ticked just 1. So 1 out of 3. And how many ticks are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1/3 of 15 is 5. Another way of doing it, we can do 15 divided by the denominator. Divide by the bottom. 15 divided by 3. So share the 15 bananas into 3 groups. 1, 2, 3 groups. They get another one. They get another one. So you can do it by sharing. 1/3 of 15, because it is the same as 15 divided by 3. If you want 1/3 of something, you just divide by 3. And in each group there's 5. Because as we found the first time, the answer is 5. And now let's do it just with singing. You're going to take the denominator 3 and you're going to sing up to 15. Make sure you count on your fingers because your fingers are going to tell you the answer now. How many 3's in 15? 3, 6, 9, 12 and 15. My fingers say 5. So 3 different ways I got the answer of 5. 1/3 of 15 is 5. Last example with all the pictures and then we will lose the pictures. This is quite big. A lot of pictures here. 30 dogs. 1/5 of 30 dogs. So first way, I'm going to get 1 out of every 5. There's 5 at the top there, isn't there? I'll just get 1 of them. There's another 5. That's nice. Positioned. Just tick 1 of the next 5. Let's get the next 5. Just take this little bunch of 5. Get 1 of them. Let's take this little bunch of 5. Get 1 of them. Another little bunch of 5 here. Get 1 of them. 1 out of every 5 that I see. Then I'll count the ticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1/5 of 30 is 6. 1/5 of 30 is 6. I'm going to do it different ways now. Now I'm going to do it with division. So 30 divided by 5. I'm going to share the 30 dogs out into 5 groups. One group can go there, one can go there, one group there, one group there, one group there at the bottom. So 5 groups. They're going to be the leader of each pack, the leader of each of the 5 packs. As I share these 30 dogs out into 5 groups. 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. Just fairly sharing everything out. 30 divided by 5 is what I'm doing through sharing. Lots to share when there's 30 dogs. Getting there now. Right, how many in each group? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as we found out the first way, the answer is 6. If you were to do this sharing, you wouldn't draw dogs because they're quite difficult to draw. You could just draw little circles like this and then share them out. Or you could get little counters and share them out. However, the quickest way probably of doing 1/5 of 30 is just singing our way to the answer. So you sing in the denominator and you go up to this number, this quantity. So we sing our 5s until we get to 30. We count on our fingers and the answer should be on our fingers. So we sing our 5s up to 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. My fingers are saying 6. We know it's 6. So 3 different ways we've done that. I quite like sharing all the pictures out for year 3 and year 4. I want you to see what is going on when we're doing fractions of quantity. But now that you know what's going on, we can just sing our way to every answer. So we'll do some year 3 level questions first. I would advise year 4s to do this anyway. Year 4 level questions are coming up soon. So I'm going to do a quarter of 20, a fraction and an of and a quantity. Okay, that's what we're doing, fractions of quantities. Quantities are just a number. Let's do a quarter of 20. I'm just going to do these with singing now. 4's the denominator. I'm going to sing my 4's up to 20. My fingers will tell me the answer. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. My fingers are telling me it's 5. See if you can do the next one before I even do it. Sing your 8's up to 24. Your fingers will tell you the answer. So 8 and 16, 24, 3. 1/8 of 24 is 3. 1/4 of 8. Sing your 4's up to 8. 4, 8, just 2. And finally, 1/5 of 25. Sing your 5's up to 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5 fingers. So you can get quite quick at doing those in the end by using your times table songs. Hopefully you still practice those songs, year 3s and year 4s. Haven't seen you for a while, but they can solve a lot of things for you in maths. So there we have our year 3 level fractions of quantity questions. So year 3, you can stop now if you wish, although on the last section of this, I am going to go through some word problems, some of which are in your arithmetic books. So you might want to have a look at that. If you want to, year 3, you can have a look at the year 4 level questions, which are coming up now. So year 4, we're advancing to fractions of a quantity still, but sometimes the numerator, the top, is not going to be 1 anymore. Okay? We can do all this through singing, and I'll show you how. So first I'm going to do a quarter of 20. Sing my 4's up to 20. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. That is 5. So 1/4 of 20 is 5. Now 3/4 is bigger than 1/4. So 3/4 of 20 is going to be more than 5. Because instead of just having 1/4, which is 5, you've now got 3/4. So if you know that 1/4 is 5, and you want to have 3/4, you're going to times it by 3. Because instead of 1/4, you've got 3/4. So you times it by 3. So what you do is you find 1/4 of 20, which we already did, then you times it by 3. So I'm going to do 5 times 3. 5, 10, 15. You can use your songs for that as well. But this time, when we do times, the answer is what we sing rather than on our fingers. So when you do division, as I think year 4 do know, when you do division, your fingers tell you the answer. When you sing times, what you say is the answer. So 1/4 of 20 is 5. 3/4 of 20 is going to be more than that. It's 15. It's 5, 10, 15. So the actual rule we're using here, if we're talking about this year 4 level question, this 3/4 of 20, what we're doing is we're taking the quantity, 20, we need to divide it by the bottom and then times it by the top, all of which we can do through singing. Let's do some more examples. 1/8 of 24, then 5/8 of 24. So 1/8 of 24, sing at 8 till you get to 24. 8 and 16, 24 is just 3. They're quite easy when they have a 1 on the top, aren't they? Especially for year 4s. When they've got a 1 on the top, you just do 8 and 16, 24, and the answer is 3. But 5/8 is harder than 1/8. It's bigger than 1/8. So this answer is going to be bigger than 3, because 1/8 is worth 3. 5/8 is going to be 5 times 3. So do 5 times 3 and you get the answer. Or 3 times 5. 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. It is. Is it 15? Yeah, it is 15. Got a bit confused for a minute then. Why am I writing 5 when I say 15? 15. So 1/8 is 3 and 5/8 is 15. Now this time, let's just, let's carry on. Let's do another one. These times tables, we don't use the 7s in year 3, so you might not know your 7s, year 3s, but your 4s you do. So we can sing our 7s to 35 to see what 1/7 of 35 is. 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. It is 5. So 1/7 of 35 is quite small. It's only 5 out of the 35 because it was only 1/7, which is a small fraction. 3/7 is a bigger fraction than 1/7, isn't it? So 3/7 of 35 is going to be more than 5. Don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be more than 5. 1/7 was worth 5. 3/7 is going to be worth 3 lots of 5. 5, 10, 15. That's going to be 15 as well. Now the last one, I'm just going to show you the harder version straight away. Well, there's a rule coming up in a minute, but just ignore that. Just ignore that for now. So 2/5 of 25. So I'll show you how you can do the whole thing with singing. First of all, you do 25 divided by 5. So you sing your 5s until you get to 25. 25 divided by 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. My fingers tell me it's 5. So I did 25 divided by 5. It was 5. That's told me 1/5. But I want 2/5. So I get the 5 that I found and I times it by 2. 5, 10. And I get 10. So what I did there is I didn't do the first part. I kind of kept it all together and did it all straight away here. But if you have to do 2/5 of 25, you might find it easier to first do 1/5 of 25. Because when the top's 1, things are easier. You count in 5 to 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and it is 5. And then, because the 1/5 was worth 5, 2/5, of course, will be worth 10. So, this is the rule, hiding at the bottom of the screen here. Divide by the bottom times by the top for year 4s, because you have to deal with ones where the numerator, the top part of the fraction, is bigger than 1. Where year 3s only have to deal with ones where the top number is 1. So the rule is divide by the bottom times by the top. So you get your quantity, 25, you divide it by the bottom. You can do that by singing your 5s in 25. How many 5s in 25? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. My fingers tell me that is 5. But I don't just want one lot of 5. I want whatever the top says. I want 2 lots of 5. 2 lots of 5. 2 times 5 is 10. That's why the answer is 10. So we divide by the bottom times by the top. Okay, that was year 4 level questions. Now, if your brain's about to explode from everything you've heard, you probably might be done now. But for some year 4s, we can do some slightly larger quantities. This is really for year 4s because year 3s have not done the bus stop yet with us because school's not been on. The bus stop method for division I'm talking about. Because when you're doing 3/4 of 200, let's write that here, 3/4 of 200, you might not be able to do the division in your head. So the rule that we just mentioned was divide by the bottom times by the top. Is that still down here? There it is. Divide by the bottom times by the top. Okay, so I've got to get my quantity, which this time is big, it's 200. And I've got to divide that by the bottom. 200 divided by 4. You might be able to do that in your head, but if you can't, this is where you'd use the bus stop. We used to have a little rhyme. Divide by the bottom times by the top. If you forget the division, do the bus stop. One of the year 6s made that up once. So 200 divided by 4. Now year 4s, last year you did the bus stop and you do some bus stops in your morning maths. So year 4s can do this, but year 3s haven't really seen the bus stop. So that's why these questions are not really for year 3s anyway, unless they really know what they're doing. How many 4s in 20? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 is 5. How many 4s in 0 is 0. So I did 200 divided by 4 and it was 50. So I'm just going to remember that 50. Then you times it by the top. 50 times 3. 50 times 3 is a lot like 5 times 3, isn't it? 5 times 3 is 15. But 50 times 3 you place this 0 and it's 150. So I needed to do a few workings. I'll just cross them out now that I've finished with them. I needed to do a few workings, but I got 150. If this is too hard for you, don't worry about this. This is just for people who really know what they're doing at this point. 3/4 of 200 is 150. If you had 4/4, if you had 4 out of 4 of 200, it would be 200. But we've only got 3 out of 4. We've only got 3/4. So it's not 200, it's 150. If you're still with me, let's move on to another one. 5/8 of 240. These are getting much, much trickier now. Not year 3 level. Year 3s, you do not have to worry about these ones. 5/8 of 240. I'm going to divide by the bottom, times by the top. If I forget the division, I'll use the bus stop. Okay? So, divide by the bottom. 240 divided by 8. You might know what that is. I think it's going to be 30. But I'm going to use the bus stop to make sure. How many 8s in 24? 8 and 16, 24 is 3. And a 0 is 30. But I'm not done yet. That was just 240 divided by 8. And that was 30. That's what 1/8 would be worth. But I've got to do 30 times 5 to get the final answer. Times tables in disguise, we call this. Because it's 3 times 5 in disguise. 15 and a 0. This one's 150 as well. 5/8 of 240 is 150. Don't worry, they're not all 150. It would be easier if they were. They're not all 150, just the first 2 have been. Let's write those on. Just a coincidence. You see coincidences in maths. Just a coincidence. It's very unlikely the next one's going to be 150 as well. It's not. 3/4 of 1,000. Okay? So we're going to do 1,000 divided by 4 to tell us 1/4. Then whatever we get, we'll times that by 3 to tell us 3/4. 1,000 divided by 4. If you know, you know. And if you don't, use the bus stop. Divide by the bottom, times by the top. If you forget the division, use the bus stop. 2, carry the 2. 5 and 0. 250. Then I've got to times that by 3. 250 times 3. You could use column method if you need to for 250 times 3, or you could use grid method if that's what you like. If the times is a bit difficult, you're going to use a method. When you get bigger questions like this, you might start to realise you can't do them all in your head unless you happen to know 3/4 of 1,000, which some people do. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. You can see how the level of question has gone right up now, much higher than where we started. So 3/4 of 1,000 is 750. Let's get the last question. Hiding under there. I've got in a bit of a mess here. That's okay. Right, this one, no one's going to be doing this one in their head. Possible you did the above ones in your head. This one, you're going to need the bus stop because the division is just too hard. Divide by the bottom times by the top. If you forget the division, or if it's just too hard, use the bus stop. So 2, 5, 3, 5. We get the quantity, the number. We divide it by the denominator, which is 5. I have no idea what this is going to be, but my friend at bus stop is going to tell me. Looks like it's going to be 507. So 2,535 divided by 5 was 507. I've now got to times that by the top, which is 2. 507 times 2. Going to do that with a little column method. You could, of course, use grid method, which I use with you in the morning maths. And this is standard method, which I also use in the morning maths. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1. 2 times 5 is 10. 1,014. That was quite a complicated answer there. 1,014. Now I can't do that in my head. I doubt any of you can do that in your head. That's the kind of level some year 4s will be able to get to with fractions of a quantity. Right, and that's done. But the last page, which is for children and possibly parents as well if they're interested, because these are the kind of word problems you might see in the mental arithmetic books. And a lot of these are to do with fractions of a quantity. So I'm going to go through these. They put some awkward little tricks in and things like that. So I'm going to do these 8 questions now just to finish off today. But hopefully you can find a fraction of a quantity from today's lesson. So number 1, Bob has 18p. He spends half of it. It's another way of writing half. Sometimes the line's like this. On a computer you might see 1 and the line like this and 2. It still means 1 divided by 2. He spends half of it. How much does he have left? So we're doing half of 18 here. We're doing what we did today. Half of 18. Half of 18. So divide by the bottom. 18 divided by 2. Well, I count in 2s till I get to 18. It's 2, it's 4, it's 6, and it's 8, and then it's 10, it's 12, 14, 16, and then 18, it's 9. It's done because there's a 1 on the top. It's just 9. You could times it by 1 and it'd still be 9. So half of 18 is 9. So number 1, the answer is 9p. 9p. Try and write as neatly as I can with this thing. So we're on to number 2. How many pence is 3/4 of 12p? Well, this is 3/4 of 12p. It's a fraction of a quantity. 3/4 of 12p. Now, I think this is a year 4 level, but sometimes you get questions like this in the year 3 arithmetic books. Well, because it's book 1, not officially only for year 3s. So 3/4 of 12p. Divide by the bottom, times by the top. 12 divided by 4. 4, 8, 12, that's 3. Then I've got to get that 3 and times it by this 3 that's on the top. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 of 12p is 9p. Number 3, 5/8 of 56. This will work because 56 is in the 8 times table. Quite a difficult one. But you're going to do 56, same as always, divide by the bottom times by the top. 56 divided by 8. I'll sing my 8. 8 and 16, 24 and 32, 40, 48 and 56. My fingers tell me that is 7. Then I take that 7, I've stored it in my head, and I'm going to do 7 times the top. 7 times 5. 7, 14, 21, 28 and 35. It's going to be 35. Or years 3s could do 5 times 7 because you haven't done your 7s yet. Is it pence or anything? No, it's just 35 this time. Number 4, 1/10 of half a metre. This is quite tricky. I'm going to change. We haven't done anything yet where both numbers are fractions. So I'm going to change that half a metre into centimetres. You might know that 1 metre is 100 centimetres. So half a metre is 50 centimetres. So now I can do 1/10 of 50, which is much easier. 1/10 of 50 centimetres. Divide by the bottom, times by the top if you need to. 50 divided by 10, so 10 and 20, 30 and 40, 50 is 5. Times by the top, which is 1, is still 5. So it's 5 centimetres. Number 5. 1/3 of a sum of money is 12p. How much is 2/3 of the money? I'm going to need some space to work these out now. Number 5. Let's move everything up. Number 5. 1/3 is 12p. How much is 2/3? So if 1/3 is 12p, this is different to what we've been doing, but it's still connected. If 1/3 is 12p, but you want 2/3, we just do 12 times 2. 12 times 2 is 24. So 2/3 will be 24p. Unusual question, but this is what these last few are. They are, tricky ones, really. Number 6. 1/4 of Ted's money is 8p. They tell you that fact. 1/4 is 8p. How much has he altogether? Well, all his money must be 4 quarters. He must have all the quarters to get the whole lot of his money. So if 1/4 is 8, but you want 4 quarters, you're going to have to get the 8 and times it by 4. Because instead of 1/4, you want 4 quarters. 8 times 4. 8 and 16, 24 and 32. 32p. It's just the other way round, this question, really. Notice how all of these questions, you can use your songs. They can be so valuable to you in these questions. So the answer 32p, and we're on number 7. The value of 1/5 of a coin, so 1/5 is 10p. The value of 1/5 of a coin is 10p. What's the value of the coin? Well, we want the whole coin, so we want 5/5. We want all the fifths to have the whole coin. So if 1/5 is 10, but we want 5/5, we have to get the 10 and times it by 5. 10 times 5. 10 and 20, 30 and 40, 50. See how much the songs come up in these questions. So what is the value of the coin? 50p. And finally, question 8. It's been a long lesson today if you've done everything. How much is 1/3 of 30, or by how much is 1/3 of 30 greater than 1/5 of 30? This is a 2-part question. We've got 1/3 of 30, we've got 1/5 of 30. Nice way to end, because it's a bit more practice of fractions of a quantity. 1/3 of 30, and then we've got to do 1/5 of 30. So 1/3 of 30 is going to be 30 divided by 3. I'll sing my 3s up to 30. 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. And I get 10. And down here, 1/5 of 30. I'll sing my 5s up to 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Well, that is 6. Did I say this was a 2-part question? It's actually a 3-part question. Because we did this part, 1/3 of 30. That was 10. We did 1/5 of 30. That was 6. But we've got to do the last part. By how much is 1/3 of 30, by how much is this greater than 1/5 of 30, this? By how much is this greater than this? It's actually 4 more, isn't it? It's 4 greater. So the answer is 4p. By how much is 1/3 of 30, 10p, greater than 1/5 of 30, 6p, is 4p greater. That was a lot of work today, but I wanted to show you those questions because a lot of these are coming up in those arithmetic books. This lesson is the one that has the most of those questions in. So thanks for listening. Hopefully okay with all of that, and I'll see you again next time.